in.
23rd, 20-something.
Look at that. They all just
100
came
hours?
pouring in.
No. Yeah, no, I'm not going to have time for that. Yeah.
Seems like everyone was ready for this.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hello. Welcome. Yeah, we're going to get started in just a few moments as everyone kind of trickles in.
Yeah, that's never going to stop.
Hopefully everyone's getting themselves comfortable. Have your drink. It's still kind of early. I mean, depending on when you woke up. Yeah. So some kind of coffee or tea or really just, water, I guess, works too.
I know.
Sorry for the background noise. Other people in the house. So, working from home. All the fun stuff, right? But I'll be on mute later on, so then you all won't have to hear it the whole time.
And that's how we'll handle that one. Yeah.
But I think, so we got a good portion of the participants in. This is supposed to be a fairly large group. We had about 28 people saying that they confirmed that they were going to be here today, so we're still a few short. But I think just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and kind of get us started and just do a little bit of housekeeping, and then I will hand it over to our presenters. So welcome everyone for coming. My name is Melissa. I am the programs coordinator with the Community Foundation of South Puget Sound. And this is, in case you're in the wrong one, this is the Sharing Stories, Activating Our Stories and Campaigns on Social Media. And just a few little housekeeping is that we do have, we are going to be recording this session. And so if you decide that you don't want to be on the video, or if you don't want to have your audio recorded, that's fine. You can go ahead and turn your video or audio off. Not a big deal. And we do ask that if you have any questions and stuff, you can feel free to put it in the chat box and we will get to you as soon as we can. And additionally, we do also ask that you stay on mute for the majority of the time so that you don't get background noise like I have. And I think for that, and we're good. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you all know that we do have a couple of other upcoming workshops. We have next Thursday, we have a creating an effective content marketing strategy from Three Girls Media. They are a lot of fun. And then the week after that, we have another presentation from the Ostara group, and they are going to be doing Give Local, how to make the most of this opportunity. So that one might not be as exciting for people who aren't partaking in Give Local, but there will be some relevant information that you can take that you can use for other fundraising efforts. There will be a lot of focus on online fundraising opportunity and strategies in that session. So I think that's all that I have. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and pass it on to our presenters, Danielle and Elaine.
Hi, everyone. Hello, familiar faces. Hi. My name is Danielle Ruse, and I'm a board member on Window Seat Media, and also own a communications company in town. And this is my first Zoom workshop, which is very exciting to lead. I thank you for joining us. And Elaine, who I'm pointing to because she's next to me, but she might not be next to me for you.
Well, I saw some of you last week. I'm Elaine Brandenburg. I'm a curator at Window Seat Media. I'm an oral historian and have background in fundraising and communications. And I'm here today. Danielle and I designed this two-part workshop series, and I'm just going to provide some technical support to Danielle and pipe in occasionally. But it's nice to see everybody.
So at this point, I'm thinking that most people have used Zoom pretty extensively, but if you haven't, and you're not familiar with the features and you're just seeing me, but you want to see the entire crowd, you can switch your view in the top right corner from speaker view to group view, which is going to be handy because I'd like us to do introductions if everybody's comfortable with that. That can be a little tricky when we're not in a round table, but let's just do our best. So Would everybody mind introducing themselves? You don't have to unmute yourself to introduce yourself. I really would love to know where what organization you're from, if you're participating in Good Local, what project you're fundraising for, and just kind of generally what the mission of your organization is. So who wants to get us started?
Hi all, I can get started. My name is Diana, and I am the outreach coordinator for Cielo. And we are participating in Give Local this year, very excited. I've gotten to participate in past years with Cielo and Hispanic Roundtable. I want to say shout out to Melissa, because as I first got on and navigated, she literally has been amazing, a tremendous resource. And so happy to be here, and thank you for this workshop. I think this is a critical one.
Welcome, Diana.
I'll go next. I'm Rachel Lundmark. I'm the Executive Director at Thurston County Volunteer Legal Services, and we organize attorneys to provide pro bono services to low-income folks in Thurston, Mason, Grace Harbor, Pacific, and Lewis counties.
Okay.
We're fundraising for just mostly general operations.
Totally.
Well, perhaps I should be the next then. I'm Paul Schlechter. I'm with the Young Conference of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and our mission is to help as quickly and effectively as we can the poor and the desperate in the area. We do it mostly by telephone helpline, and occasionally by actually visiting the people and trying to find out what their problems are.
Thank you, Paul.
I'll jump in. Celeste Wade. I'm with City Gates Ministries, and we work to prevent people from becoming homeless that are on that cusp, and then to assist with the homeless issue in Olympia as much as possible.
I'm Heather Antonitis. I'm with Family Education and Support Services, and our goal is to end child abuse through education of adults who are influencers over children. So we do a lot of education classes with families, as well as people who are providers or influencers. So we've been doing Give Local since it started, and I'm really excited about this year, and I'm really excited about this. I love storytelling. It's one of my favorite things, so I always enjoy a good Zoom call.
Hi, my name is Samada, and I work for Thurston Climate Action Team, which is an environmental nonprofit organization. And we do all sorts of things in the Thurston County relating to the environment. But most recently, we've been working on pushing the passing of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. So a plan that would help, implement more strategies in the county to support to really help with climate change and alleviate some of those disasters and things that might come up. And so the fundraising, I'm pretty new to the team, but it seems like they've been involved with Give Local for a couple years now. And then I think the fundraising is really just to help also operations and continue the movement of passing the climate mitigation plan.
I guess I can go next. I'm Melanie Linkford, and I run a Gift for Special Children of Mason County and have been since 2000. And basically we help families with special needs, kids and children with disease, to do all kinds of things. We work a lot with homeless youth and families. We do a lot of utility assistance and all kinds of other access to healthcare, removing barriers, so gas vouchers, car repair, stuff like that.
Hi, I'll introduce myself next. I'm Evangeline. I work for Hummingbird Studio, which is part of an organization called Kokua Services. Our mission is to help individuals with disabilities live independently and full and meaningful lives. The studio specifically brings art to the community. One of our goals is inclusion. So currently we're doing all of this through Zoom. And we're excited to see what Give Local can do for our community this year with COVID and everything going on. There are so many challenges ahead. It's our second year doing Give Local, and we had a fantastic experience last year. And yeah, we're just looking forward to it. So nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you, Elaine.
Oh, Shannon. You're actually muted, Shannon.
I know. I'm keeping it muted because I'm having classroom stuff going behind me, and we don't have walls and doors here. So anyway, hi, I'm Shannon Cosell. I'm the director at Sound Learning. Our main office is in Mason County, although we have services in both Mason and Thurston counties. We are adult basic education. We're basic education for adults and out of school youth 16 and over. And our programs are all, we use a lot of volunteers and community volunteers, although that's interesting right now in these times. And we work with adult learners who need to upgrade their basic academic and life skills, or job employability skills, for a whole range of reasons. One is to get into training programs or be ready to be in college programs. Another is to get a diploma, either a GED or a high school plus diploma. A large portion of our participants are English language learners. So we also have people who are anywhere from no English at all to pretty good English, but still it's a second language. A lot of students currently come to us from Guatemala. So they the primary language is Mom. And quite a large percentage of those people have possibly up to third grade schooling. And there's a fairly significant, if you look at it, population that has no experience with formal schooling at all. So on a good year, we serve about up to 200 students in the year. We're a staff of 5, and we've been doing this for almost 30 years now. So that's us. And we've been with Give Local since the beginning. Last year was my first year as director, and I am not social media savvy. I try to be. So it was a real struggle. So I'm really trying to learn a lot before we get to what's coming really fast. So thanks.
Thank you.
So my name is Tana Morel, and I'm with the Olympia Robotics Federation. So we're with First Robotics, and we help kids learn about robots and also learn to love STEM and to share STEM education with the community. So this is my first year with them, although I've been with another team before for 4 years, and I do marketing mentoring for them. And so I'm excited to work with Give Local this year. Our funds go both to make the robots and to help kids travel. There's a lot of competitions that are involved. And so we get the team to travel. The team is very diverse with just a lot of women and different races and different ages of people coming together to share their love of STEM. So it's a really fun project.
I'll go. I'm Tracy Jameson. I'm on the board with Danielle at Olympia Art Space Alliance and with Doyle. I see Doyle there. Hi, Doyle. If you don't know what Olympia Art Space Alliance, we advocate for artists in Olympia for studio space, living space, exhibition space, and I'm on the communications team. So I'd like to learn from the guru there on how to up our social media game. And you guys are all very impressive. Amazing.
So I'll go next. I'm Doyle Fanning, and I'm with Tracy and Danielle on the Olympia Art Space Alliance, but I'm also on the Arts and Heritage Alliance, and we're working to put together an arts, culture, and history museum in downtown Olympia. And we've only been in existence for just about 1.5 years. So we're really getting started, and anxious to learn what we can. And I went with the director of our board last week for the Arts and Heritage Alliance and on the other workshop and got a great deal out of it. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Welcome. Nice to see you, Doyle. And is there anybody left who hasn't introduced someone? I keep scrolling to see if we have a second screen yet, but I don't see one.
I think everybody introduced themselves except for Hannah, who put her introduction in the chat. So she's here too.
Yeah, and does everybody know how to use the chat function in Zoom? There's some items in chat. So Hannah says, it's a bit chaotic loud here and I have youth in the background, but I'm Hannah. I'm with Heart Strides Therapeutic Horsemanship, working on raising funds for our youth engagement program. We've done Give Local before. Hi, Hannah, nice to see you again. Well, and nice to have you present. Okay, so in the chat, if you haven't used the chat function before, it's in the bottom bar of Zoom. It's a little talk bubble when you hover over that says chat, and I've put some items in the chat for you, of which the slides that we're going to be looking through, the agenda that we're going to be following today, and then we're going to do some workshops for actual real social media planning. And I put 2 templates in there. In the past, when I've done this kind of activity, I've been able to hand out paper, which is much easier, obviously, to write on paper in a group together. But I've put the template in here twice, so you can access it by following the link, or I put Word documents for you to download and open. Whatever is easiest for you. So one is an Excel file that's editable, and one is just a Word document that has a calendar on it that's editable. If you want to try and test and open those now, please feel free. I won't be offended if you're fidgeting on your document, but, oh, yes.
I'm looking.
Oh, sorry, Atana, you're muted first. Atana, you're muted.
Let me try again.
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking at the chat, but I don't see the links.
Oh, of course, because I shared, well, okay, so this is another funny thing about Zoom that I just remembered right now, which is that you can only see the chat from the moment that you enter. So as we start, would you mind, Elaine, copy and repasting links that you can see into the chat at the bottom? Thank you, everyone. That's a thing that I often forget about Zoom, which is that you only have access to the chat from the moment that you enter the room, which I think is kind of rude, but yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna get started.
Danielle?
Mm-hmm.
Danielle, I'm using my iPad and I don't see a chat function. I don't see a bubble. And it's all up at the top. It's not at the bottom, so.
Oh yeah, on the iPad function, you might not have a chat window that slides open, but I think it's in the 3, there should be like a 3 dots.
Right.
Can you see that? And if
yeah.
not.
Okay.
You see
chat.
it? Okay. You got it? Okay.
Okay, and I apologize. Oh, I apologize. I just pasted something that was already just on my clipboard that has nothing to do with this in there, so I apologize.
Anybody else need technical assistance before we get started? I just want to make sure everybody is comfortable and knows what is following along. Okay. Pretty crucial. Also, nobody ever asks that in my Zoom workshops I've attended, and it bums me out a little bit. So, okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. I'm going to go over our agenda for a few minutes and I'll open it. I'm going to start screen sharing now. If you have a question, please raise your hand, but when I'm screen sharing, I can only see a small bar of participants, like 3 people at a time. So please feel free.
They could use the little hand raise symbol, or you could just type your question in the chat too.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Please feel free to, and Elaine's going to monitor the chat. So if you have a question or a flag or something's wrong, please just write the chat, feel free. We're going to do 2 breakout sessions and 2 workshops during this time. And together, we have just a big enough group that I think that makes sense for the sake of timeliness. So hold on just a second. No, actually, instead of going through my agenda together, which is kind of, I think instead, I'm just going to go through the beginning of our camp. So we're just going to get started because I think that makes sense. And I just want to acknowledge that somebody already said this, but social media, right, fundraising online right now is very different. It's changed a lot in the last even just few months, and it's kind of a moving target. There's a lot happening in our world right now, which we're all aware of. There's a huge social justice movement happening, which has kind of changed the relationship to the way that we provide services in our community and how we frame the impact of our services, and also, of course, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which is kind of, well, we all know that it's causing an unknown impact in our social fundraising and our ability to tap our community of donors that have been longtime donors and supporters. So I just wanted to acknowledge those two things because that kind of changes my traditional social media workshop template. Things are just not normal. I'm going to say that's okay. One of the wonderful things about Give Local, and we'll talk more about this, is that it's really about thinking of building your local community and the assets that exist in your local community, and also considering what you give back, how your work is making a difference. For many of us, that's mission-directed work that we think about every day that we're meeting and working in our organizations. But in this workshop, I'm going to ask you to try and think of your mission-driven work in the form of gifts or actual physical things that you're doing for the community. Because when we talk about fundraising here, we're going to talk about fundraising for things. So actual physical things that you're doing that are helping your local community. And if that's challenging, we'll talk through it in workshops, but yeah. One of the things that I wanted to talk about for Give Local campaign goals, and maybe actually before I move on, Elaine, do you want to add anything to what we're talking about?
At this time, yeah. I'll
Okay.
jump in. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I mean by asking for gifts is this idea of really engaging and educating the community about your work in a time where there's a lot of dialogue happening about immediate need. So I think for many people, and I'm kind of interested, who's running has like really upped their social media in the last, I don't know, 2 months without being able to meet face-to-face or have your regular workshops? Has anybody in this group really kind of upped the ante on your social media? Yes, I see that definitely. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that the way that we're, minimizing. If you've ever used screen share in Zoom, it creates this tiny little window that you have to scroll through to see everybody. So forgive me as I take a second to scroll through everybody's faces. So one of the biggest pieces for me about what's changing right now in our social media and online dialogue is kind of what is okay to post and talk about right now. Because for a little while on social media in the last few months, all posts and all social media activity was geared toward the crisis of social justice action. And that's something that happened really quickly. For all of the nonprofit organizations that kind of had long-term campaign giving and requests around immediate COVID-19 fundraising needs, they kind of shifted the dialogue and conversation and started looking inward and doing work to reevaluate how their mission was really meeting goals of inclusion, of promoting community members that maybe have been left out of the conversation of their work. And that work is ongoing, right? It's not an immediate thing that happened. So I know for all of the boards that I serve on, which I do a lot of community volunteer work. So I work with Window Seat Media, I work with the Olympia Arts-Based Alliance, and I'm also the business chair for the PBIA for the city of Olympia. All of our boards have been going through this kind of restructuring and conversation of what our work is really doing in the community and who we're working for. And I think that's probably happening at all of your boards as well, even boards that are focused on serving one community. So in this time for Give Local campaign and considering how to structure your campaign goals and really your messaging, that's kind of the reason I think you should go back to your mission and really think about the thing that you're trying to fund through Give Local and how it's serving your local community. So think small. That's a funny thing to say, but instead of thinking big and like how we're going to make it through, 2021 or help us meet our fiscal goals, I'd like you to kind of miniaturize your ask and think about specific things that you need to accomplish your actual mission goals for next year. So that could be help us keep our lights on, right? Like we need help paying our bills next year. And I think that's true for a lot of us. But it could also be help us enhance this aspect of this program that reaches our community in this way. Or for example, for the robotics team, like I think giving students opportunity to participate in national action, even though that's an unsure thing about when our students are going to be able to be together in the future, elevating opportunity is a small piece of the mission that you can really ask for and fund. So in this engagement and education piece, I'd like you to think about telling your community who you are and what your direct small needs are. It's okay if for Give Local, you're trying to fund and target a specific thing. So I'd also think about sharing and resharing your mission, your values, and your goals throughout your campaign. And we'll talk a little bit more about what this looks like when we're doing a social media planning. Obviously, this is a big thing that all nonprofits know and that we're all struggling with right now, which is asking for volunteers and support for our campaign at a time and honoring people's time, right? But I'd like to say that in this Give Local cycle, while we are, of course, asking people for funds, I think it's also okay to ask for time. That's not an acknowledge the time that people are giving to you. So in your social media asks, you can also put that out there. Yes, we're asking for money, but also we need more time. We value your time and recognize that as a gift. It's important to set clear goals in your direct appeal. Obviously, there's a campaign around GoFundMe is about reaching a final goal, but when I'm saying setting goals, I mean targets throughout your campaign. So how much money you'd like to reach at each point throughout the campaign instead of just focusing on that final number. And we'll look at examples of that too. And obviously responding. So building a community support network with other organizations. Everyone here in this room has an opportunity to kind of get to know each other a little bit and also to interact with each other's Give Local campaigns. And I'm going to support you to do that. So if you can, please pay attention, rewatch this, and make sure to go through and interact with everybody in this room's campaign, because that's actually a big part of building up the first week of Give Local is your interactions from new participants. Do we have any questions so far? Great, I'm just scrolling through. So engaging and growing your community here. I just put this list in here because I think it's a nice reminder for people that you already have a big community to fundraise from, and I want to make sure that you're really considering all of your assets. Of course, your current volunteers, your board members and their families, your staff, your current mailing list, and your social media followers. That's kind of how I think of it as clusters of engagement. And when I say engage, I'm actually talking about a direct appeal. So in the beginning of your Give Local campaign, before you start your social media ask, in this, I'm going to include direct mail, which means using your newsletter list, whether you just send a plain text email or use MailChimp or Constant Contact or whatever. Take a few minutes to identify a strategy for communicating your goals in an individual email to each group. So to your current volunteers, an email to your board members that they can share, and kind of direct messaging for your staff. And then obviously for your general email, which is just an announcement. So you may have questions about this. I know this is just a bulleted list, but it's nice when you're thinking, when I say community, this is what I mean. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is also the big thing that I hear with every organization I talk to is who's going to post, because you can have really great intentions about your social media campaign, but again, with the issue of time, honoring time and the extra pressures of COVID, building an actual schedule and then adhering to it can be incredibly difficult. I know that myself, I always have this desire to want to execute everything, but my real time is only, whatever, how many usable hours in the day. So identifying a dedicated person who has ample time to contribute to your social media campaign is really important from the beginning. And that can mean setting reasonable expectations for their time. So like, let's say you have a board of 10, you identify 3 board members that are willing to participate in social media, and those 3 board members are put together a drafts of posts to send out about your Give Local campaign, but you still need somebody to help coordinate and post that content. So for those of you that aren't skilled in social media, you have the ability to draft content now in your different platforms and save it. And there are some links at the end of this on how to do that. I just included a resource guide at the end because I know there's different skill levels in this room, but it's important to just be realistic about your time and also plan for it, because the best thing that you can do during a campaign like this is post regularly. It's literally, it sounds so easy to be like, hello, you must put up 3 to 5 posts per week, but actually posting 3 to 5 times a week is the dream. And it's not just posting on social media. That also includes using your newsletter and using your other kind of direct communication outlets, whether that's making phone calls or texting. So it's 3 to 5 touches per week while the campaign's going on. That takes a lot of time. So it's important to kind of coordinate that early on. I hope all of you are thinking right now about who your dedicated staff member is that is going to be in charge of social media. And if you don't have that, please feel free to speak up during our time where we're together in the workshop. Again, I would love you to emphasize the gift of time to your staff and your volunteers. Oh, and this actual little piece here is left over from something else, but the lovely gift of extra time is really not something that any of us have right now during COVID. I think it's a myth and an illusion because things are stressful and we're all doing our best. And as it becomes a new normal, it doesn't make it any easier. So really over and over again throughout the campaign, acknowledging time and checking in on your organizer is going to be a big thing. So in that vein, this is kind of my little tips on how to engage your board and your committee members. So can everybody raise your hand if you have a board that's meeting semi-regularly still over Zoom, maybe monthly? Is everybody's board meeting regularly right now? Okay. Is everybody's board, are there lots of people's boards who are not meeting regularly right now and are just meeting quarterly? Yeah, okay. That's kind of what I figured. So that means making a direct ask for fundraising support during this time is a little more difficult. It could mean that you need to pull out outside people outside of your board, but I always include this piece about meeting your board members where they're at, because I think that it's difficult when we try and amp up board responsibility, even for a short term, if it's not in their regular duties. This is something Elaine and I have actually kind of talked about a lot, but the pressure on your board during a Give Local campaign, even though it's so short, right? It's only 2 weeks. It's actually a full month because you need to plan for lead time and for thank yous. So acknowledging and meeting your board where they're at, acknowledging their attitudes, their myths about fundraising, and their levels of comfort with social media is pretty important straight on. So this is kind of like just doing a little internal SWOT analysis of your board's capabilities. If you don't have those resources within your board, that's okay, because any effort that you put into Give Local is going to pay off. But there are different things that different board members can do. So if you have board members who aren't comfortable with social media, they may be comfortable with calling their families on the phone and asking them to support your campaign. That's a big deal. I think that that's something that we kind of forget about when we're planning and thinking about just the general impact of building an online campaign is that actual direct asks and direct appeals from your board member can go a long way. Even if they just build it into their regular routine of talking to people on the phone, of just communicating in their own channels, whatever they are, it makes a huge impact. So being specific and assigning specific tasks and then following up with your board is going to go a huge way to making sure that your online campaign is successful.
Hey, Danielle, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
We have a hand up for a little while. Dana, did you want to ask a question?
Thanks, Elaine.
Yeah, thank you. My question was more around when we were taking a step back on the social media front and how we could leverage each other, like on this call as an organization, how we can leverage each other when we're doing some of those posting and maybe cross posting. Any ideas that you might have around what that looks like?
About leveraging each other? Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that you can do is, this is funny, but actually just interacting. Because of the way that interactions are changing on social media, when you like or interact with something within a community organization, your name appears to everyone that knows you in your community circle. Same thing with when you comment on something. You may have noticed this change and maybe not. It's an accountability change in Facebook, but it's actually really, and I'm speaking specifically about Facebook and their associate Instagram, but it's actually a really cool local organizational tool. I don't think that's how they meant it to work, but let's say that you post something and after this, I'm going to go through and like everybody's pages on Facebook, and I recommend that you do that also. And maybe Melissa could help by sending out a list to everybody of the organizations that have attended. But if I like your post, it'll show up in my feed that I liked the post now as a suggested post to the people in my community. And also, if people look at that, they'll see my comment and that I interacted with it first. It's kind of a subconscious and strange engagement tool that lends a little bit of community feeling and support. So if everybody in this room just took the 1 second to communicate with your Give Local posts, like, this is so great, or even just, sharing is a big one, but like even just interacting with people's posts at all ups the engagement level across the board. And I think part of the reason that they made these changes was to try and build some sort of community accountability around what people are saying and their social media profiles, but it's had this really positive impact in this one way. So that kind of answer your question?
It does, it did. And it gets me thinking on maybe also the possibility of doing like a joint live, like just having a joint live. Just tell me a little bit about your organization and my organization. Let's have conversation about how we together support the community in similar ways, or maybe very different ways.
It's a really good idea. And that's a way, and what I'm talking about is we've seen a radical change in the way people use social media in the last few months to talk about their organization. It's quick, it's changing every day. But that's one of the community alliances and kind of this concept of mutual aid at a local level, which is what you're talking about, right? Is this, we're in this together and we're working on this issue from these different points. And these are our real direct needs right now that we're raising funds for. That's an amazing idea. And again, Melissa, do you think that we could send out a list of all the organizations that have participated today?
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, anyone who's in here today, if they would like to be a part of that list, if you want to go ahead and either privately message me in the chat or you can email me separately, just letting me know that you're okay with me putting you on a major list, that would be great. And so that way I can just go ahead and compile it all together and then send it out. I was also going to say, like with what Danielle was saying with, just engaging with other nonprofits, Facebook pages, or like Instagram, just any kind of social media. Like I have about like an hour dedicated every week where I go through like the community foundation social media, and I go through and I look at everyone. I go and look at as many people's posts, and I share and like and that kind of stuff. It's all, I usually have like just like a dedicated just like an hour, which most of us spend more than that on our own personal social medias each week. So I just kind of take from that time and use it from the organization's account instead.
Hannah, to answer your question, I think both. I think from your organization and from your personal account are both powerful tools, because you as an individual have a different network than you as your organization. I know that Facebook, I included some resources for using Facebook for those that aren't familiar with it at the end of the slides, and we'll look through that together. But it is complicated to switch between the two roles sometimes. I know that if you're even an intermediate Facebook user, that can be difficult if you like an organization as both things. Yes, and scheduling time. So hopefully the biggest thing you walk away with after we finish going through this presentation in another 10 minutes or so is the ability to actually build a schedule for your Give Local time. Because that's a best intentions thing, to sit down and actually schedule something. But to build a calendar that you can adhere to is hopefully going to be helpful. It's interesting. LinkedIn is I'm just going to go through the chat and answer some of these questions really quickly. LinkedIn is growing significantly as a social media presence. I haven't seen it be used really effectively for fundraising yet. It's more about communication from your mission and your goals, because it's still sort of a platform that's less about sharing information and more about self-promotion. Whereas some of our other social media platforms are changing to be more about sharing information primarily. I wouldn't avoid LinkedIn but I wouldn't make it your primary target. I personally love to share content on LinkedIn only because it gets a really different interactions, and I have a very different LinkedIn community than my regular life, right? So it's like a great way to share information. And yes, I saw that the help with Instagram is a big one. And I think so does everybody in this room have Instagram that they're using right now, or just Facebook as the primary platform? Would you mind? Here, hold on. Would you mind raising your hand again so I can see if you have an Instagram? Thanks. It takes me a second to scroll through all the 3 screens. So of you that have Instagram, are you posting on a regular basis or just sometimes? Like just a couple times a month?
So I'm the digital media coordinator for TCAT, and they basically hired me to start uplifting their social media component, because the person who was in this position before me didn't have as much of the background in that. So I've been trying to post almost daily, really, and creating social media content using Canva, which is a great resource that's free, that makes, like smaller, like you can make flyers, post, everything. And so, yeah, I've just been trying to post either every day or every other day. And it's been a slow but steady growth of followers and interactions with our account.
Do you use stories also then, or are you just posting in the main feed?
For stories, I just share more like either our post or other people's posts. I haven't really done a lot of like me talking or anyone else from the organization, but I've been kind of thinking about as you've been talking, for the Give Local component, I might try to do some video work.
Great. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. I think that stories are pretty powerful for sharing video. And like I said, if you don't know anything about what we're talking about, I want to include that your direct mailing and your email, in my mind, is social media. I'm including that because almost every organization has a newsletter that they use, which is also a very powerful tool. I encourage everybody to at least use Facebook, but also your newsletter is very important for direct ask and for communicating. So I just want to put that out there. Don't be overwhelmed, because it's really what you put in the bucket is good. And I'm just going to say that over and over again. So if you're like, oh, I don't use Instagram stories, what are you talking about? First, I encourage you to try and look into it, but it is a curve. It takes a lot of learning, especially because it changes all the time. So I'm seeing this, and I'm just going to move on and make sure I didn't miss any questions in the chat. If you have a small board, I see this also. I've definitely worked in many small boards or in boards where there's not a lot of participation outside of leadership, right? You're not a working committee board, you're more of a policy or directive board. I still feel like every single board member, even 2 people, can make a big difference in a Give Local campaign, but it's really about tapping your personal community network then. And you do that by building a community strategy. So it's difficult when you're putting things out there to know what's working. And I know that that's true. So I'm going to just suggest these steps, which is what I use whenever I'm trying to evaluate a campaign for a client. So first of all is to identify your audience. Identifying your audience could be a channel, right? You could be like, we have, well, for some, I'll use the Arts-Based Alliance as an example. Arts-Based Alliance has a large Facebook following. It's like, for our community, it's about 1,000 people locally, which is a nice tap for us. But that doesn't mean everybody interacts with our posts. But when we do post content, we have a good amount of shares. We can have, an impact of 700 to 800 people. So who are we talking to in those people, and what is our goal? Not every audience is the same, right? So direct mail is a little more formal, and I would say much more personal than a Facebook post. You want it to use we language, right? And your direct mailing, and you language. So we are going through this, or we are fundraising for Give Local, and we are asking you to help us. That's an important tip that I'm going to put out there, especially for your direct mailing. Don't talk about your organization in the third person. Wait, that is third person. Don't talk about your organization not in the third person. Or like it's a standalone entity. So I wouldn't say, for example, the Community Foundation of South Puget Sound is asking you to support us for the, I would say we are reaching out to you, our donor, and asking you to share our goal for Give Local to support our mission. And we're doing that by, we're working to send 5 students or 10 students with full scholarships that didn't have opportunities to this upcoming event. So let's see. Choosing the right communication channel. For this, I'm going to say I would encourage everybody here to at least engage through your direct mailing and on Facebook. Those are your first 2 goals. If you have capacity, also use Instagram. And if you have capacity beyond that, add in LinkedIn or any other social media channels that you have out there. I know that TikTok is really popular right now for social fundraising, even though the future of TikTok is in jeopardy in the United States. So the same goal throughout the entire campaign is, that's a great question, and the answer is yes. So because it's a short amount of time, you want to express your goal in 3 different ways. And that's going to be on the next slide of how we're creating our content strategy. But yes, think about how you're framing your goal, and we'll talk about that in just a second in content creation. And kind of work it into your audience in multiple perspectives. So it is okay, and I would encourage this in your social media posts and in your direct mailings, to think about your Give Local ask from 3 different perspectives. So from the perspective of the organization, that's the whole, and how it's serving your mission. From the perspective of an individual in your organization. So that could be a board member, which I love getting newsletters from direct board members instead of from the whole board, but that could just be me. But it makes me feel like I understand more about the people that are putting their time and energy into this thing and why I should care about it. And I'm much more likely to give to somebody who's asking me directly than to an organizational ask. I used this example last year, but I am such a sucker for the Old Dog Haven newsletter. I don't know if anybody else gets this. Does anybody else in here get the Old Dog Haven newsletter? I'm just scrolling through. So if you haven't, of course, it's kind of a low budget newsletter. It's a little clip arty. It's a direct ask that's written from a board member that I get every quarter, that shares success stories about animal adoptions and is written from the board member's perspective. And I have never not given to the newsletter. And the thing that's different about it is that it's a direct appeal. So on your social media channels, I encourage you to think organizationally. I'm going to post some content that's focused on my mission and how I'm going to ask for support for my mission through this project goal. Individually. So a board member directly asking, introducing themselves maybe, or you introducing yourself and talking about your individual goal and why you're giving your time to the organization. And just in a sentence. So like, I just want to take a second to introduce myself. I'm so-and-so that works for this organization, and I'm supporting Give Local this year, and I hope you do too. And I really care about our students and maybe share some success. In Elaine's storytelling workshop, which I know some of you attended, you talked about how to kind of change the positioning of a nonprofit organization to not just be about like being the savior. And I think that messaging is really important right now, because when you're developing your content, when you're talking about your organization's mission and how your project is going to support your organization, and you're talking about kind of meeting the goals throughout your campaign, you have the opportunity to more elevate how you're working together as a community to really address tough issues that are facing us and create opportunity, right? Instead of talking about how there are people that are maybe really suffering. So does everybody get the difference there? And then obviously the third way then to share is to share individual testimonials about your work. So this communication schedule piece here, I'm just making sure that I'm looking, this communication schedule is what we're going to do next. But evaluating and approving is also about looking at your analytics and identifying your target audience. So for everybody here, just take a second to think about this. I want you to ask yourself, who's your ideal supporter, right? So is it somebody who makes a large gift? Are they people that make small gifts? And when do you have the best turnaround on your communication? So does everybody here use some form of analytics to look at how you're doing your web analytics, maybe a newsletter open rate, social media? I see yes, yes. Yes, Google, great. Okay, so I've included kind of when posts perform well. There's like some, I think, kind of, well, it's not a sound science, right? Because it depends on who your audience is, but that's a part of understanding and engaging with your audience. Okay, great. That's a ton. I mean, including analytics into your decision-making can be valuable. I will say it's also okay to just put it out there if you can't think that strategically, but there are better times to post than other times for your social media campaign. And also kind of understanding who your followers are on social media. And I don't know if anybody ever takes the time to do this, but before you start your campaign, it can be great to just kind of look at who is following you. Spend a second looking at their profiles, who else they follow in your region. All of that information, especially through Facebook and Instagram, is available. As long as their account isn't held privately, but because they like you, you can have a window into that. Maybe look at their age range. I think you'll recognize some of it. You don't need to spend a lot of time doing that, but like 10 minutes is it's just a good thing. Look at your MailChimp list or your email list. See if there are faces you recognize that are following you that surprise you, or anybody that you could identify in your community as maybe being a powerful influencer, somebody who has a lot of like a speaking platform, or is a part of another organization in the community that could elevate you. It's a nice piece of investigatory work. When's the last time we did that with our organization, Elaine? I think it's been a little while since we dug in and kind of looked through. Oh,
Yeah, I don't think we've done it recently. Yeah.
It's a good
But
practice.
It does seem like a good exercise. Because I mean, fundraising really is about relationships. It doesn't matter if you're like face-to-face or social media. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's about building a community around the work that you're doing. And the more you get to know the people in your community, the better, because then you understand what's, you know, what drives them there. So yeah, so getting to understanding who your supporters are on Facebook just is all part of the bigger picture from my perspective. But it's kind of harder to do, I think, in some ways, just because it's there's just so many folks. But part of
it's a good practice, though. I feel like it's something that I just want to put it out there. Looking through your list is awesome. Do that. Try and make that a regular habit. And when somebody new follows you, actually click on them and look at their information and see why they came there and why they're interested in you. I wish that it was appropriate for you to reach out to each person that followed you. You could send them a thank you message. That's not that strange, but it is a little voyeuristic because of the anonymity of Facebook to have direct interactions with everybody that follows you. We're not there yet. So right now, we're going to do a little exercise about what you do and why you do it. This is building your impact statement. Does everybody in this room have an idea of what you're fundraising for Give Local? Or are some people still in development? So going back to this thing where I suggested that and please feel free, if you don't mind, putting in the chat what your goal is that you're fundraising for. I know some people said they're fundraising for operations, some for program support. But if you're fundraising for operations, I want to reiterate this idea of asking people to support things. So not just giving you money, but like actually thinking of something that the money is going to buy and then asking for that. So instead of saying like, we need help with our 2021 fiscal budget, you could say, you know what, we need help keeping our lights on. We need help accommodating. What's a good example of a new program growth option for somebody that's in this room? Does anybody want to?
Well, for example, for us, I know we have a position, like one of our staff members is about to leave soon because the funding for her position is about to end. And so really she does a lot of the community outreach. She's an artist, like an environmental artist. So we try to do work with her that is a lot more visual and like more appealing than just, you know, like reaching in a more traditional way. And so I'm guessing that some of this fundraising, I need to talk a little bit more with my supervisor about the exact goals with this fundraising, but I think that would be one of them, for example, being able to continue her position after the other grant is over.
So an example of that then would be understanding the impact statement for that would be the lives that that person has impacted through your work and how important that is. So actually focusing on the elimination of their position as negative messaging, right? So instead of that, you could say like, this person does crucial and important work in our community. This is how we're fundraising to keep their work going next year. When you're thinking about this impact statement, try to, if it's okay to start with a negative statement and be like, we're at risk of losing our individual space next year because of, or we might be losing a crucial staff member, but flip it into actually why that matters. So in the teams that we're going to break you into, I just want you to take a few minutes to discuss your mission, and then kind of explain to each other what you do, why you do it, and how you do it, and really just talk it out for just a few minutes. So maybe 3 minutes a person. That sounds like a lot of time, but it's really not once you start talking about the mission of your organization. How many people do we have, Elaine, to break down into groups? Sorry, I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
14. Because if you minus me, you, and Elaine,
Great.
that gives us 14.
Yeah, so why don't we just break into groups of maybe 4 or 5, maybe 3 groups. You want to break into 3 groups? See her doing the math. And I'll go forward into this content statement so you can look at it while you're in your breakout groups. Let's see.
Danielle, it's going to put you and Melissa in a breakout room, so you can just pop out if you want to.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. It'll give you a, you just have to accept the invitation and go in, and then we'll pop out.
Okay, does everybody see it? Great. Make sure you talk about your mission and your goals. And then I'll put this back so you can see this. What, why, how?
There it goes.
There.
Right.
I think I'll just hang out here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go actually use the restroom.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'll be back in just a minute.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring him back in about 2 minutes.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I figured gotta make sure everyone has time to chat a little bit at least.
Hi.
Oh, you're muted.
Hi.
Can you put me in the breakout room, Elaine?
You want me to put you in a different one? Yeah.
Yeah, put me in.
Which one do you want to go in? Just
anyone, yeah.
I'll go in 3.
Okay. For a minute.
Okay. You just have to join.
Okay. I know it's hard to go through a presentation when you're also answering questions from the chat. That's a thing that I've never experienced before.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fair.
Did you see the joined?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's rude.
Says, let's see. Put you in
Hey.
breakout room 3. It
No.
didn't pop up. It says not joined. Well, I'll move you to a different one, see if it works. Oh, you were just in that one. Hold on. Okay. Does that work?
Mm-mm.
Huh. I don't know why it's not. It should give you like
Maybe.
an invitation to join it.
Let's see it. Can you like kick Danielle out of the first one that she was
Yeah,
in
she's
and then
not
send
in the
another one?
first one anymore. She's
Weird.
but I just said move to. Oh, there
Nope.
she goes.
No. Gone somewhere now.
How are the rest of your workshops going?
Oh, pretty good so far, you know.
Good.
Yeah, I just had another one the other night for our platform walkthroughs. So I've been doing those ones.
Nice.
And so yeah, I know with those ones, like it's been, I don't think there's really a particularly good way to like engage. There's not, can't really do like a breakout room or anything like that.
Yeah, but people are getting used to that too, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like I've sat on like 2-hour Zooms where you just listening, and it can be a lot, but you know, if the content is useful, you still
Right.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have them. Most of the time they've only been taking about an hour. I set aside an hour and a half just, you know, to be safe. But so far they've only taken about an hour, which is good.
Good. Yeah.
So, and I know I like sit there and I block in like spaces on the presentation for questions. Mostly so that way there's that pause, can check the chat, and then also I can get a drink of something, you know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good way of doing that.
It always feels weird to like, because I've been attending so many like Zoom meetings and stuff that like it's weird to be the host. I'm just like, I don't feel like I've talked this much in months. Like,
I know. Yeah. I'm gonna come back in about sending a message.
So we're gonna kick you all back in a few seconds. No.
I taught at Evergreen this quarter, and that was intense.
Yeah.
I teach these weekend classes, and it was like we didn't wind up doing a full 20 hours on Zoom, but the class itself would have been 20 hours in person. So I just had to modify it, but it was,
Yeah, wow, that'd be a lot. Is it like spread out throughout like 8 weeks or something, or?
Well, there are these weekend intensives that I usually are in person, so I wound up just teaching it over 3 days, but just greatly reduce the number of hours, and then just have them do like supplemental assignments, which then I think people complain that it was too much work. So, yeah, because it was a lot of writing, but you know, the alternative would be sitting in front of a computer for 20 hours. So.
Yeah, which is a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
No, not at all.
All right, here comes everybody.
Ooh, welcome back. I think that's everyone now.
Welcome back, everyone. I tried to pop around the rooms and just kind of see if there was good conversation happening. So because already we're kind of running out of time, which is amazing. I'm going to run through the rest of my slides, which is just a few more, and then we're going to do another planning exercise where you're going to actually utilize one of the calendars. So while I'm going through this slide, if everybody could try and open one of the documents that was shared in the chat. Did everybody access those or have an opportunity to? If not, they're just helpful tools.
Do you want me to just do is it just the calendar? I can reshare that just so people have it further down.
So there's 2 options, and we'll for social media planning. One is what I love, which is kind of like a burn down chart. It's just an Excel sheet where you fill in everything by week. I don't love using a calendar as much unless I'm writing on it. And then the other is a calendar. So you can choose which one, but the goal is going to be that you're adding 3 to 5 posts a week. So Here, let me open the chat. Great. While I'm finishing my presentation, if you want to go ahead and try and open those, that would be great. Hold on, I'm being blacked. Presentation. Okay, so creating your content for your posts. What you all just talked about was kind of your elevator pitch, right? Which is what we say about our organizations whenever we're meeting and talking to somebody new. Everybody does it in a way that you kind of have the same words and language that you use when you're speaking about your organization and your goals and your community. But you're going to, for Give Local, obviously define what you need. And remember, ask for things and not for money. Obviously, money is the end goal, but trying to fund for things is a much more successful tactic than just doing a pool of cash. Unless, so even in a successful GoFundMe account, the end goal is usually helping somebody reach a goal, whether it's finding new housing or helping with an emergency situation. Think about your Give Local ask as the same thing. Make sure that you have that clear goal in mind. And always remember that you don't get what you don't ask for. So you have to be really explicit and not vague in your ask. Okay, so very, very explicit. And also I'm going to encourage you to share stories and testimonials. If you haven't or didn't have the opportunity to view Elaine's workshops, her slides are going to be posted on the Community Foundation site if they're not already, and I encourage you to look through them. They're really rich and full of information about how to work with your community to tell your story without kind of accidentally or unintentionally marginalizing those that you serve. I think that that's something the nonprofit sector is really working hard on right now. It's ongoing work. And make sure that you define your own success, because if you don't reach 100% or you don't have the goals that you don't reach those kind of lofty milestones, you need to build a success model for yourself, because success could also look like having new followers, right? It could be building your community. It could be making new relationships with people in your community. It could be building your nonprofit relationships. It could be trying out a fundraiser like this for the first time on your own. So all of those are success milestones. I think it's important to see that. And also, most importantly, plan to say thank you. Saying thank you is a big part of communicating with your donors. It's an opportunity to reach out with new content all the time, to thank people, and it encourages people to give. So how often should I post? This is the big one. This is the meat. So you need to keep 3 avenues of engagement going. That's going to be your social media, your newsletter and direct mail, and I encourage phone calls. That's very antiquated, but during Give Local, asking everybody to even just make phone calls to existing donors to support them, to thank them for supporting you in the past and letting them know that you have a Give Local campaign happening is a big one. You can also use texting, which is becoming a more important and fluid way for us to communicate, and everyone knows that. I also want to acknowledge some things that are happening around the Give Local time. One is the federal election, which happens on the 3rd. Give Local starts on the 9th. So there's a lot of communication that's going to be happening that week, and none of us know what that's going to look like right now. Also, there's a holiday, a federal holiday that week. Those are opportunities for engagement, but you need to plan for those. So plan to kind of adjust your social media calendar and schedule to accommodate those 2 big I think of the election as a federal holiday, but just kind of, those are both blackout days sort of for your communication. They're both on the calendar. You want to post new content for Facebook a minimum of 3 times a week and a maximum of 5. Give yourself 2 days off. Those 2 days off, if you want to work on your content every day, you can be just communicating with people that comment or that post on your stuff. So, which means interact with your existing posts. It's okay for you to directly engage with people that are commenting on your things. It's also okay for you to delete negative comments on your posts. I would say if you do encounter negative comments on your posts, I would encourage you to respond to that person directly and privately if you feel like you need to, not publicly on your forum for your funding. And I wish we had more time to kind of dive into that right now because there's some strategy, but feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk about that more. And also make sure that you're sending progress reports out to your community through email campaign or direct email. That's thanks to your community support. Thank you to your generous support. A progress report can be 3 people donated to your campaign. I just want to point that it doesn't have to be we reached a 50%. So the more that you share about your success and your progress, the more people are likely to give. Okay, has everybody had an opportunity to look at this? Can I move along?
Go ahead.
Okay. This is my big one though. The biggest opportunity for you to have new funders that come to your campaign is by saying thank you. There's nothing like a thank you post creates this kind of fear of missing out, and also gives people this personal warm feeling. Often from thank you posts, people who've given once will give again. That's another thing to kind of understand and recognize. And thank you posts can go across your 3 avenues of communication. So you can say thank you in a direct mail, and I encourage you to schedule direct mail thank yous at least once a week. I say twice is good. So from the very beginning of your campaign, when you're scheduling your campaign announcement, toward the end of your campaign, say thank you at least once a week in a different way. It could be a staff photo. I encourage you to use even maybe low budget tools such as your camera phone to record somebody saying thank you in your organization. And I think, Elaine, did you share tools on taking video in your?
Yeah, we did. I mean, and mostly it was, I think the most important thing is for it to feel genuine, authentic. So I would say don't worry so much about the quality. Sound quality is important, and there's on the slides, I think there's some tips on that, but using an iPhone or whatever, smartphone you have is totally great. So I think just you make access to with the tools that you already have, and just keep it really simple. And as long as it's kind of heartfelt, I think you're good.
Agreed. So it can be, that means your camera could shake a little bit. It doesn't matter. I mean, a thank you post is, especially with your board or with a director who doesn't talk a lot or somebody that you don't see regularly on social media, can be very impactful and very genuine. These are 2 other tips for those that maybe haven't looked at it, is make sure that you're using your organization's style guide if you have one. Those are your recognizable colors, your logo, as well as the Give Local logo for the year. And then also, we talked about analytics already, but it's a very helpful way for you to see if you're getting new site traffic from your Give Local posts and who's visiting and what time of day. So these are this is actually a 2018 post that I really loved that Sidewalk did. They just built this in Canva, and I'm sharing this again, even though I shared it last year, because I loved this thermometer that they did. If you have an opportunity to kind of look at this 2018 campaign that Sidewalk put together for Give Local, it was very successful, and it used a lot of the tactics we're talking about, including they said thank you. They posted 3 to 5 times a week. They took videos of board members speaking about their cause, and they were fully funded. Of course, Sidewalk has gone through some changes in the last couple of years, but I think that this recognizable kind of cute colors using the Give Local theme is something that I really liked. I'd also encourage you to use the hashtags. Hashtags were kind of out of style for a while, but the new grouping of hashtags together by the algorithm is actually pretty cool. So I'm sure in the style guide, the use of hashtags is going to go out, right? But tagging the community foundation in your post, which makes them turn blue, right? You do that by typing out their name and then selecting the drop-down menu. And then this Give Where You Live, Give Local, and our community together. And then I just loved this one too, from the South Community Farm and Land Trust. I thought it was just so well executed. This is just a great example of a graphic. You see they do both of those things I'm talking about. They use the hashtag, they tagged the community foundation, and they used kind of a positive campaign ask. So we're going to do some social media scheduling and planning right now. And I'm just showing this to you as an example of, this is literally just an example that I pulled off the internet of what a plan guideline looks like in an Excel spreadsheet. But what I'd like you to do is think about 4 weeks of social media posts. week one being introducing your campaign at the bare minimum 1 week before it starts. Remember though, that the federal election happens that week. So with all the stuff going on that week, plan for that, not to post campaign material on Tuesday, it'll just get lost. And Wednesday also. So think about your messaging and your avenues of communication. Who is going to do it? And this is just a brainstorm. So 5 posts, let's plan for 5 posts a week, okay? Or five avenues of communication. So it doesn't need to be 5 Facebook posts a week, but I want you to think about at least 2 newsletters and 3 other avenues of communication a week. And do we have questions about this? I'm sure that people have questions. Hang on, I'm gonna go ahead. Okay, hold on. I'm catching up on my chat real fast. I love this appreciation campaign, Shannon. This is great. Oh, that's interesting. Heather, the donors using alternative emails and addresses right now. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah,
I'd like to do more workshop in a minute.
no, we send out emails monthly, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I was noticing through communications with some of my board members specifically that they weren't receiving them. And so in conversations, it just so happened that they're only going into the office every once in a while for whatever reason. And so they're using home addresses more. And so we have a conference coming up, and I specifically added to the campaign that if their address is different than, I showed them what address I have on file, and if their address is different, they needed to give that to me so that when we mail them their registration packet, it gets to the right place. So several people are working from home, and sometimes that means their email is kind of a little bit different than normally opened. So we're still learning, but a lot of it's the address, but we've noticed emails as well. A lot of them are also using their personal email a little bit more.
That's interesting. So it might be a good idea for everybody to think about before they launch their campaign, updating their address books. And that's going to be posting, literally just using social media to say, is your address up to date with us? Like, a lot of people are working from home right now, and we want to make sure that we can still reach you.
And our social media as well on that, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but social media, the times of which it's being used has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't tracked it well enough to really be able to give specifics, but the times that we usually post are having a different number than what used to be. And I think part of that is a lot of the families who follow us have kids at home. So for the summer, it's leveled out to what I would expect for the summer, but I'm curious what that's going to look like come the school year with people navigating schools at home. So I don't know if you guys have looked at that and the changes with COVID with kids at home. Over the summer, it's hard to see, but we're talking about during school year when kids are going to be and people are navigating work with. We have a lot of families with children, and so that's a big question mark for us.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? The traditional best day to post is Wednesday at 9 a.m., right? That's like been the solid gold time for a long time. And now I've noticed more engagement in the afternoons, right? And late evenings. And I think that one of the things that you can do to kind of help your newsletters and your posts be elevated is by interacting with them. So like posting an update on a comment in the afternoon. That's a good thing that's extra work, right? But like, if you are really engaged with trying to create the most interaction in your posts, that's something that you can do. I see another question here from Hannah, this about thank yous on social media and calling people out. Hannah, I wish that calling people out on social media was a thing that we could do even for praise. But right now, in our culture where there's a kind of a lot of shock of direct communication online, I think that it's better to just mention the support in general and send the person a private thank you. I always think that sending a private thank you is acceptable. We actually, for large gifts and even small gifts at Window Seat Media, we send cards in the mail, and I think that the follow-up thank you email can be specifically targeted to people, but I would do it through direct mail. If you do have a large string of gifts and you do want to do direct call outs, I will say that it is okay to tag everyone together, right? Because then you're creating a community of thank you, not just one person. And that's happened to me in the past with gifts that I've given. And I feel like that's appropriate and comfortable if you're tagging a lot of people. Yeah, that share-a-thon and gift raffle, that's interesting. Is because there are bonus Wednesdays in Give Local, right? Yeah, so that's kind of a similar vibe, the like promoting the extra. Well, I want to make sure that everybody sees this because we're going to take the rest of this time together. I'm not going to do us and put us in a breakout room, but I want everybody to start kind of focusing on penciling in their calendar for the remaining time. But I put some stuff together here. One of the biggest issues, that I run into is sizing for social media campaigns can be really challenging. So this is a link to a cheat sheet. This is a spreadsheet that has all of the preferred sizing for all of the social media platforms, including LinkedIn and all of the sub platforms, as well as the social media calendar that I was talking about and the spreadsheet that I put together that has an example in it. And then 2 other workshops that I thought were really helpful that are recorded Zoom. This one is from Philanthropy Daily and it's about social media marketing in the time of COVID. It goes over some of the things we talked about. And then I also like this grassroots fundraising readiness exercise, which is another mission distillation exercise about building your local community support. It takes about half an hour. It's meant to be 2. And Canva is a resource that the Community Foundation really pushes also. Canva's awesome. It's a free tool for creating. I will also say, and maybe people have noticed this, but there's a big popular movement right now of using PowerPoint slides in social media and on Instagram. I don't know if anybody has noticed this. I see some laughter coming from but it's true. I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but it's been a radical thing that's been happening in the last few weeks where it's just PowerPoint slides all over social media. And if you're not skilled in using other design tools, that's of course, right? Agree about them not being a fan, but it's true that it is something that's happening. And I think it's a resource-based tool. So I'm just going to put that out there. Yeah, was everybody able? Yeah, so it's people creating a PowerPoint slide and then downloading their individual slides. So you'll notice that now that's a lot of the content that's being shared on social media is directly from PowerPoint. Okay, so with this, I'm just going to point really quickly as I go through that I also put some other information in here, okay, about a good rule of thumb for your display size for mobile and screen. All of this is going to be available in these slides that will be posted after this presentation. Some do's and don'ts for creating your Facebook content. One of them that we didn't talk about is about boosting content. That's not as relevant right now as it has been in the past because targeted marketing is being swallowed by organic content. But if you want to reach out with additional questions about this, I have resources I can point you to. The best time of day. This is updated for what's happening right now and what we were talking about. The research still points to midweek in the early morning and then re-interacting with your posts, but that is an interesting post to put up. And then some how-to links, okay? How to boost your content, how to understand reactions, a step-by-step photo guide. Okay, so does everybody have their social media calendar? We're out of time, but if you want to spend like maybe 5 minutes drafting your posts, I want you to hold the space and time for that. And do we have any questions? I know I've been answering questions throughout. Is there anything I missed?
I have a question.
Yes.
I haven't done it so
Please.
much since, but last year during the campaign, we put together on Canva kind of graphic pieces with photos and had wording in them. And when we posted them out on Facebook, Facebook declared them as political advertising or something like that and blocked them. And they couldn't be shared. And so we had to readjust everything.
Okay.
Have you had that or any solutions? I haven't done it so much since that happening.
Okay, so that's a complicated one because that's a moving target. I read an article yesterday when I was looking through this to try and see if I could find tips and tricks. The short messaging of under 5 words without a direct appeal in the post, so don't ask for money in your post, is what will keep it from being tagged as a political flag. You could still post fundraising pieces. So like, we've reached this goal, but the direct appeal is what is usually causing your post to be flagged as political. Was that the case with your posts? Did they have like...
Honestly, it was a kid swinging and it said something, you know, just like a quote, and it said to kind of join the campaign sort of thing. I don't have one right in front of me, but I mean, we had one as a kid as a superhero and it said help, you know, save. It was like a statement and then the call to action, but nothing asked for money. It was strange for us, but there were more than 5 words sort of thing in a quote.
I think it's also, there's a list of key, you know what, I'll look and see if I can find it, but there are flag words right now in the new Facebook algorithms and updates, and campaign is one of them. So is awareness. I'll look through to see if I can remember the other ones. Did you challenge it? Just out of, I know
I did, but I mean, by the time it didn't even go, I mean, like, it just took too much time before it would make sense. It was easier just to redo it and just make it an image. They're not very good about getting back on those challenges quickly.
No, I don't actually think they even have support staff for that, to be honest. Okay, so the big thing that I want to push here before we break is that spending a few minutes to fill out an actual plan, like actually write down what your posts are going to be and who's going to post them. So I'm going to encourage Melissa to share my contact so you can reach out to me with individual questions. But again, focus on the 3 avenues of engagement and sharing content 3 to 5 times a week, including an announcement, main content, thank yous, status update, and then a final week of thank yous. That's kind of my sweet spot magic number for fundraising. And hopefully your messaging is in place. And I'm going to hang out here for a few minutes, but in case we have final questions, but I'm going to acknowledge that we're at time and kind of thank everybody for coming. And again, Melissa can share my contact information if you want to reach out to me with more questions.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I will be sending out early next week that contact information and the social media list and these slides and everything next week.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure getting to meet everyone. Don't be afraid to go in front of the camera and post a video of yourself during your campaign saying thank you. You can do it. Short burst.
So Danielle, I have a question.
Yes.
Trying to really focus in on what our ask is going to be. So I'm trying to decide if we go programmatic and dive into one of our specific programs. So we have programs like fatherhood and kinship and working with families through the court systems. And then what I would like to do is we are starting a new podcast for families, and it's a free 20-minute podcast that will be starting up in September, specifically to address some of the issues families are dealing with right now. Not just for COVID, but in general, like higher stress, higher anxiety, more trauma in families, kids being at home. And I'm looking to help fund that program, but it's starting, like we're right now on the start of that. We've been working with school districts and things for getting concepts together. We're starting them in September. So having that proof that you show and showing the impact, is it worth pursuing that? Or should I go for the tried and true programmatic where I can show numbers of affected people, stories from people affected? It's the same information, just how it's being delivered is different.
It's interesting. If you had asked me this question last year, I would have told you to go with an established program, but because I think that we have an adapting community that's really changing and stepping up to meet community need through mutual aid, like trying to establish a new program to meet a specific goal that you've identified and a specific need is something that I believe you could successfully fundraise for through Give Local, even without, and you can still use this idea of sharing, maybe not success stories or testimonials, but sharing like community support. Does that make sense? So like maybe something that's not necessarily, that's just like, we all need support. Use a we language instead for your testimonials and create a targeted campaign that's more specific to why the program is being created. Does that make sense? So you'll have campaigns that talk about the mission of your project that you want to fund, but then also you can talk about the direct impacts of the project in place of using like a personal story or a testimonial.
So for a specific ask, we have it narrowed down to approximate dollar amount per podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Do we ask for them to pay for a podcast? Or we ask for them to just support families through providing a free service?
I would focus more on providing a free resources, growing resources in the community. Yeah, because asking people to pay for a podcast is strange, right? Because you're asking,
right, yeah.
But the thing that you're funding then is providing the resource. It's a little different, I think, when you're starting a program. But the difference between asking people to help to provide opportunities for others and support for others, that is asking for a thing, because you're not saying support this new project, right? Which I think.
I also think the nice thing about that fundraising for that new project is that I think it resonates across communities. You know what I mean? I think that like parents, regardless of economic status or situation, I think everybody's kind of struggling, but I think it's a real opportunity to sort of create, you know, just broaden your circle and create a bigger we around the work that you're doing. So that feels like a really good idea. I think it would really resonate with people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry to hog the questioning. I just was really curious.
No, not at all. Well, we didn't dive into some of the more direct need and services that are happening right now, right? As our vulnerable communities are really struggling, and it's summer, right? Not winter. And I think it's the same, like, how do we talk about those communities of need and really highlight those programs? And one of the ways that we do it is by talking about coming together and kind of building community support and recognizing that everybody can make a difference. And I think that that's a common thing that that organizations use, but when you're starting a new program, the stress is really felt by everyone. So I think it's easy. It's like there's a little more empathy, at least right now. I'm hoping that carries through, right, for the next 3 months. Yeah. Do we have any other questions before we? Great. Well, Melissa will share my contact information. I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to being with us. And also, it was a pleasure getting to know you all and to hear about your goals. And as we get closer to Give Local, also feel free to reach out if you have questions about your campaigns, because yeah, it is nice to have support and also to have somebody to reach out and ask. I know Melissa is amazing, so I'm happy to support that work. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you, Danielle and Elaine. That's great.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you so much. I look forward, and like I said, please, I'm going to go through and follow everybody that I don't already follow, which I think is almost everyone. So, I mean, I think I almost follow almost everybody, but I encourage you to do the same.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye everyone.
Everyone, thank you.
Thanks, Paul.